Honestly, I was not able to watch many matches of WrestleMania, but were there any matches to you that kind of stood out and that you were really intrigued by?
Yeah, I mean, I think the main headliner, I guess, for all the WrestleMania matches was the triple threat match between Roman Reigns, Edge, and Daniel Bryan. Very, very fun match, and I guess it's already okay to go ahead and spoil it. Was pretty surprised to see Roman actually get the pin. And win the match, pinning both Edge and Daniel Bryan at the same time, which is very impressive. They have really built up Roman Reigns to be a beast now, and I thought it was a great match. I actually expected Daniel Bryan to be the winner of the match, of course, and obviously that didn't work out. So I'm interested to see who is going to be the next contender against the new or the WWE champion.
Yeah, to me, I honestly did not going to watch that match. There was only a couple matches I was able to watch, but with Reigns, with him winning, I in the way I understood it, but in the way I didn't, because WrestleMania was yesterday, and 10 years ago, yesterday was the day that Edge, retired. 10 years later, he's in the main event of WrestleMania, trying to win the WWE Championship against Roman Reigns. Also with Daniel Bryan, who I think this is probably his last big storyline. I'd be surprised if he's wrestling full time anymore after this. In a way, I understand Reigns because he's the biggest guy in wrestling right now. Nobody's even close. At the same time, Edge or Daniel Bryan made quite a bit of sense. The underdog type of story for both those guys. But the thing to me with Edge and Daniel Bryan losing to Roman Reigns now, I don't know who WWE will let Reigns lose to. Those are the two top guys that made the most sense. And with Reigns winning, kind of surprisingly, nobody really thought he would win. I have no idea who WWE will pick to eventually defeat Roman Reigns.
Yeah, that's the question we're all kind of asking ourselves now, since all the people who are built up the highest are now kind of falling off the cliff. Drew McIntyre, of course, lost the title to or Bobby Lashley in the match the previous day. So McIntyre might be one of those guys that can contend. Of course, Randy Orton did defeat the Fiend in that match, which was very interesting to see the Fiend finally get pinned, which has been very, very rare to see. So maybe Orton now sits at one of those top spots to maybe try to contend with Roman Reigns for the future. Big E Langston, or just Big E now, he was pinned and lost to Apollo Crews with the help of Dabo Kato, I believe, to lose his Intercontinental title. So maybe he is now looking for the biggest gold of all, the WWE title. That's certainly another possibility. But honestly, overall, I mean, it's hard to really top Edge and Daniel Bryan, two of the biggest wrestlers of the company for the last decade. So a very, very impressive win by Roman. I thought the triple threat match was going to be a cop-out, so he wouldn't end up being pinned, but would lose the title still. I figured either Edge or Daniel Bryan would pin the other one. But for him to be able to pin both, that's huge. And now it's going to be really interesting to see who's the next contender.
You mentioned the Fiend. I was able to catch the very end of that. That made absolutely zero sense. I'm pretty sure everybody watching was pretty much a WTF moment. They knew what was going on. It's like you feel like Alexa Bliss. I mean, I don't know if she turned on the Fiend, but I didn't really know what to describe it. To me, I just don't get. To me, that was probably the biggest shocking win of the whole WrestleMania weekend. I thought for sure the Fiend was going to win. I mean, he's freaking supposedly burnt, gone for 4 months, comes back and loses to an RKO. I don't understand you. The Fiend, I barely watch WWE anymore, but the Fiend and Alexa Bliss to me is the most intriguing characters right now. But to have them lose so stupidly and not making any sense to me is very risky, and I feel like this could potentially. I'm not going to say the end of the Fiend, but if this keeps up, this is going to be a problem for another Bray Wyatt character.
Yeah, it kind of felt like they were just trying to find an excuse to have the Fiend get pinned without it actually being legit, in a way, because obviously it was off a distraction, I guess, somewhat that allowed Orton to win. The Fiend was set to win up until that last moment. Alexa Bliss turning on him is a move that I'm not a huge fan of personally, and it kind of shocked me. It really did shock me. For the WrestleMania factor, I mean, it was crazy because no one ever expected that to actually happen, but it's really hard to see where this feud goes now because, it's not really possible for Alexa Bliss to wrestle the Fiend. And now that Alexa Bliss no longer has her interest in the Fiend, where does that take her character for the future? I mean, she can only rival against other women, and that's going to be, I don't know, pretty odd. I would rather see her kind of follow behind, the Fiend possibly for the future rather than it being kind of the other way around. But maybe now we try to see the Fiend maybe play as more of a face role and try to figure out how, what's going on with Alexa Bliss and maybe try to help her.
Me, the only kind of scenario that would kind of make sense, and it still does not make up for the crappy situation last night at WrestleMania, is if Bo Dallas has not been on TV for probably about a year and a half now. He's real life brothers with Bray Wyatt. There was lots of rumors about what if Bo Dallas would join the Fiend. I think that kind of makes sense the more you think about it, because Alexa Bliss can kind of be side with Bo Dallas like she was with the Fiend for probably about over the past half year. You would have Bo Dallas and the Fiend feud. But after that, I don't know what you would do. But to me, that's the only logical thing right now that would kind of make sense, because there's no way the Fiend and Randy Orton are going to continue feuding after that.
Yeah, I kind of feel like I kind of put it into the problems, because it really was mainly, I think that was definitely the climax of the feud between those two. The weirdest part to me is, why would Alexa Bliss help Randy Orton win after their bad beef that they have had personally between the two for the longest time? It doesn't make a lot of sense. To me, it kind of felt like they were trying to move into Alexa Bliss wanting to be with Orton instead. Which I don't like. I think Randy Orton's much better off as a loner, being like him with himself and no one else. That's kind of where he's been booked for the majority of his career, outside of being with Triple H and everyone like that. But when he's actually by himself as the Legend Killer, I think it's the most exciting character he's ever had. So I wouldn't like to see him have like a manager or someone behind him following him the entire time. It just wouldn't work, in my opinion. So I do agree with you. I think maybe looking at possibly having someone like Bo Dallas, or maybe another character from NXT or someone like that, possibly being a new creepy guy who's just trying to follow around and harass the Fiend now. It would be pretty interesting to see how that kind of turns out. But regardless, I hope what turns out of this is the Fiend continuing to show his dominance, because his character is very, very exciting, and I don't want to see him lose now.